I've covered artists who have changed their persona, taken alter egos, or straight up changed their musical style. Every time I've done a story on those topics, people always comment on the infamous Garth Brooks Chris Gaines story, so I thought, let's talk about it in today's video. I think the LA Times probably summed it up best in a 1999 piece they did on Garth Brooks that echoed a lot of what people in the media thought about the whole Chris Gaines thing, stating, Garth Brooks has some explaining to do. What's this about country music's biggest name putting out a pop album, they'd ask, and starring in a movie? Meanwhile, the Orlando Sentinel had a more sensationalist headline that read, Good God, Garth Goes Goth. By 1999, Garth Brooks had been dominating the country charts for the whole decade, selling over 100 million albums. In fact, he was the most successful solo artist in US history, but in 1999 his career took a strange turn. Deciding to take a break from country music, Brooks had come up with a screenplay and a detailed storyline for an alter ego named Chris Gaines. The idea was the brainchild of Brooks and his production company Red Strokes Entertainment and Paramount Pictures. The name given to this film was The Lamb, and that wasn't the only big career move Brooks made that year, as the country singer had a short stint as a baseball player, joining the San Diego Padres for spring training, but much like Baba Booey would say, it was a bit of a stumble. The script and backstory that Garth Brooks had developed for Chris Gaines was super detailed. To summarize, Gaines would be born in Australia in 1967 and moved to America by 1972. During his early years in school, he would show an aptitude for music, much to the chagrin of his parents who were professional swimmers. Gaines' first band would be Crush, an outfit he started in high school, and the group had some success, but tragedy struck when the band's frontman died in a plane crash. As a result, Gaines would pursue a solo career. Despite having some major success, he would suffer personal tragedy after personal tragedy, including losing his home in a fire, losing his father, and suffering a debilitating sex addiction, while also having his money stolen by greedy music business people. After a life-threatening car accident, Gaines would require extensive facial surgery, and Garth Brooks would start portraying Gaines in his post-crash state. But despite surviving this accident and on the brink of a major comeback, Gaines would end up dying under some fishy circumstances. Despite writing the extensive backstory, the film's plot revolved around a superfan who was investigating Gaines' death, thinking there was more than meets the eye. The film was supposed to cover Gaines' 15-year-long career, and Brooks would only appear in the film concert scenes and during interviews, and the movie was originally planned to be released in the summer of 2000. Pretty crazy story, right? Since movies are expensive endeavors and may not find an audience, it was decided by Brooks and his record label and the movie studio that they would issue a pre-soundtrack, or a prequel as some would report, to the movie almost a year ahead of the film's release in September of 1999. The resulting album would be called Garth Brooks and the Life of Chris Gaines. It's also referred to as the Greatest Hits album, even though Gaines' prior albums that the Greatest Hits were made from were fictitious. Appearing on the album cover would be a noticeably slimmer Garth Brooks as Chris Gaines, sporting a soul patch, with hair and makeup being done by an artist named Lance Anderson who worked on the Marlon Brando Val Kilmer film The Island of Dr. Moreau, according to CNN. The idea was to release the album ahead of the motion picture in order to build the audience's relationship and familiarity with Gaines. Brooks would tell the LA Times, "We want people to go into the theater and know Chris Gaines and care about Chris Gaines. The thing I'd like to get across is how serious we are about this." In a separate interview, Brooks would explain how he developed the character, stating, "I surrounded myself with people that knew what hip and cool was, since I don't." MTV would report in early 1999 what the forthcoming album would sound like, stating, and I quote, "The 14 tracks on In the Life bridge the musical styles of the 80s and the 90s, with influences ranging from country-tinged John Mellencamp to the slightly more alternative Paul Westerberg. In actuality, the resulting sound would range from R&B to pop to rock, and Brooks' voice is almost unrecognizable. And despite the fact that Brooks took on the persona of Gaines, he wrote none of the songs, as they were all written by Nashville writers, according to the LA Times. Don Was would produce the Gaines album and worked with the likes of the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan, and would tell the LA Times in 1999, "Yes, I think he's going to lose some people in cowboy hats, not for life, they just won't want to hear him sing the stuff, and then he's going to get new fans, but this is a guy who likes to go out on a limb," he'd state. Garth Brooks and his label would make one thing clear from the start, and that this wasn't going to be a country album, and Brooks' label Capitol Records never even sent the single Lost in You to many country stations, getting a mixed reaction from places who had heavily supported Brooks in his career. Despite not being serviced with a single, there was a dilemma that these country stations faced. As Billboard magazine would state, and I quote, "Either play a pop song or ignore a superstar." Some stations would tell the magazine that some audiences appreciated the change in Brooks' music, while others felt betrayed. Even Brooks' own record label, Capitol, had some doubts about the whole thing, with Pat Quigley, who was from their Nashville branch, telling the LA Times, "There's two risky elements here. Can Garth succeed in the rock, pop, and R&B world? And can you put out an advanced soundtrack and succeed without the benefit of the movie being in theaters?" And that doesn't even address the challenge of him acting, he'd say. So how did Garth Brooks fans feel? Well, MTV would interview the Missouri webmaster of the fan site Planet Garth, who would tell the network, and I quote, "Garth is too loyal to country music to cross over himself. Neither I nor Garth fans feel betrayed with the crossover. It's more like an added bonus, but I hope it isn't a full-time gig." And that was something Brooks was careful to tell his fan base, that this wasn't a career change, but rather a temporary detour. By 1999, Brooks was already being offered some pretty big roles in Hollywood, including an offer from producer Steven Spielberg to appear in the 1996 summer blockbuster Twister, and Spielberg also offered Brooks a role in the movie Saving Private Ryan. According to TMZ, one of Brooks' former business partners, a woman named Lisa Sanderson, would take the singer to court in 2013, claiming that the country star had burnt bridges and exhibited bad behavior that resulted in her losing large sums of money. The court documents and filings revealed more about the Lamb movie, as well as other movie offers that Brooks turned down. According to the court documents, Sanderson's suit claimed that Brooks said no to Twister because he didn't want to be overshadowed by visual effects, while he said no to Saving Private Ryan because he didn't want to be overshadowed by Tom Hanks and Matt Damon. The lawsuit also described a pretty bizarre pitch meeting for The Lamb that Brooks had with executives from Fox. According to AboveTheLaw.com, the court documents would state, and I quote, "During a meeting at Fox, Brooks presented music that he had in mind for The Lamb. Brooks stated that the music was especially important to him because the music expressed many of the same feelings that Brooks felt when his father died, and then he began weeping openly. Sanderson was thunderstruck and nearly fell out of her chair during the meeting, since she knew that Brooks' father was alive and well in Oklahoma. After the meeting, Sanderson confronted Brooks and told him she was stunned that he would lie about his father dying. Brooks looked at Sanderson in the eye, chuckled, and said, 'But don't you think it made the pitch so much better?' the lawsuit would allege. In order to promote the album, NBC ran a special on Chris Gaines with Brooks explaining the character and the concept to the audience, and VH1 even did a whole behind the music episode on Gaines' career. The VH1 special would feature Billy Joel talking about Gaines as if he's a real person with a straight face. Initially, Brooks didn't want to appear in the film The Lamb, but Paramount Pictures pushed him to take the role, even though he would only portray a post-crash Gaines. Jeb Stewart, who wrote The Fugitive and Die Hard, was reportedly linked to the project. The plan, according to the LA Times, was for there to be a second collection of Gaines songs released to coincide with the film. In fact, Brooks would claim that he had up to 4 albums worth of ideas for Chris Gaines, provided that the movie was a success. Then 2 months after the Chris Gaines record came out, Garth Brooks would host Saturday Night Live and perform as a musical guest. Brooks would host himself, but Chris Gaines would perform as a musical guest, and even one of SNL's cast members at the time, Tracy Morgan, would appear in a sketch with Brooks and poked fun at the whole thing. The clip is up on SNL's YouTube channel if you want to check it out. You're probably wondering, how did the Chris Gaines album do? Well, it was fairly successful, peaking at number 2 on the album charts, and it produced Garth Brooks' only charting hit on the pop charts with the single Lost in You, which peaked at number 5 on the Hot 100 charts. It would go on to sell 2 million copies, despite some in the press trampling all over the character in the album. It would sell significantly fewer copies than Brooks' own albums, and a year would go by and there was little to no info on the movie The Lamb. But by 2002, it was still being reported that the Lamb movie was still a go, with CMT reporting, and I quote, "Producers of The Lamb, a film about Garth Brooks' fictional rock star character Chris Gaines, hope to turn in the script to Paramount Pictures by the end of the summer. Screenwriter Jeb Stewart is back on the job after taking time off to be with his terminally ill wife," says co-producer Lisa Sanderson of Red Strokes Entertainment. The Lamb motion picture would never end up being released, and that lawsuit I had previously discussed would reveal the reason for the film being ditched, with court documents revealing that Brooks had issues over splitting publishing money with the movie studio. Other sources pointed to the poor reception of the Chris Gaines character and just confusion people had with the whole thing. In 2015, Brooks would give a radio interview where he was asked about the movie The Lamb, to which he responded, I don't think you're ever going to get that movie at all. All I can say is my ribs are still sore from getting the shit kicked out of me for doing that one. Despite all the hate, he had no regrets, adding, "I love the music, and that's what it's all about. Would I ever drop that much weight again? I don't think I could," he'd say. As recently as last year, Brooks would reveal that more Chris Gaines music was coming. During a fan chat on Facebook, Brooks was asked whether the In the Life of Chris Gaines album would be reissued, and he was quoted as saying, according to Taste of Country, "I can't tell you anything except you're going to have it in every format you can possibly imagine. It's coming. You're going to have Chris Gaines stuff nobody's ever heard before either. It's all coming. I love that project, so I'm excited," he'd say. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe. We'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.